So to do this, we are joined by a distinguished panel with vast experience in national evaluation systems. Firstly, we have Ms. Matodzi Amisi, who's an independent evaluation and research specialist. Matodzi's experience basically spans over 15 years in strengthening evaluation systems and promoting evidence use in public policy. And she's held senior roles at the South African presidency, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. She's also a former chairperson of SAMIA, the South African Monitoring and Evaluation Association, and a research associate at CLEAR, Evaluation Anglophone Africa, and the Institute for Security Studies. We also have Mr. Ronald Taremwa, who's an M&E specialist in the Directorate for Monitoring and Evaluation at the Uganda Office of the Prime Minister. And he also coordinates the government evaluation facility, which supports, builds and enhances national evaluation systems for knowledge brokering and advancing evidence-based policy making in Uganda. And Mr. Ronald has over 8 years experience in research, monitoring, evaluation system design, and policy development or review. And lastly, we also have Ms. Sakina Mwenyuku. Ms. Sakina is a distinguished leader in performance management with over 19 years experience in Tanzania's public service, and specializing in performance management, organization development, and development planning and monitoring and evaluation. She currently is serving as the Director of Government Performance Monitoring and Evaluation at the Prime Minister's office, where she provides strategic leadership and technical guidance to public institutions in strengthening monitoring and evaluation systems, improving results-based management, and fostering a culture of accountability and evidence-based decision-making. So, colleagues, you can see we have quite an experienced panel today. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to Matodzi, who's going to be doing the first presentation. Over to you, Matodzi.
Thanks, Sine. It's really exciting to be part of this conversation. I think for a long time we have been speaking about development of evaluation systems, learning, where to start, how to start, and to see the conversation moving or evolving into more questions of maturity, questions of future proofing. I think that's an indication that systems are evolving and things are changing. So that's a good thing. So this session sort of focuses on I should probably start sharing my screen. Focuses on future-proofing NES, right? And subtitle maturity of NES. And I would like to begin the presentation by reflecting on some of the challenges that we're currently facing, particularly in South Africa, because I think it is through examining the challenges that our societies are experiencing and how the NES assist in finding an evidence-based path through some of these challenges and the development issues that our countries are facing, that we can discuss or demonstrate the maturity of the system. Because after all, any institution that fails to contribute to solving genuine challenges that societies are confronted with risks becoming obsolete. And it is a sign of maturity to be able to deal with difficult issues. And I think that's something that's true even for personal lives, right? We judge somebody as being mature if they are able to make difficult yet necessary decisions and staying the course in life. And this is true for institutions also. Mature NESs need to provide processes and stable conditions for evaluations to serve as catalyst for change that can be felt or observed in people's lived experiences. So what is the context of South Africa's evaluation system? what's happening in South Africa that the system needs to be responding to. So the first thing is that, which kind of grounds the South African evaluation system, then you need to understand the South African kind of political system, because that situates the national evaluation system. So we are a constitutional democracy, and this follows a minority rule that lasted quite a long time, quite an oppressive system, over many years. And now you have a democracy that has three branches of government: the executive branch, legislature, and judicial. So there's a separation of power that allows the system to work within the executive. The country is a semi-federal political system, which means that you've got three spheres of government: national, with 9 provinces and about 257 municipalities, including some of the big metros that people tend to know: Johannesburg, Pretoria, and the like. And this 3 spheres of government have to work together in what is considered or termed in South Africa cooperative governance, and with some functions that are shared. So you have some functions that are only national. You have some functions that are shared between national, provincial, and municipal. Why is that important? It's important because for the NES, you have no authority per se to tell another sphere of government what to do. You have to work cooperatively with them. And then what are some of the socioeconomic conditions that the system has to sort of contend with? We're currently facing, and I can't even say currently, it's been going on for a while. South Africa experiences high levels of inequality with a Gini coefficient of about 0.63. And our wealth distribution is very, very skewed. The top 10% controls somewhere between 71 to 85%. Sometimes some estimates come to about 90% of the total wealth of the country. And the bottom 50% holds only between 4 and 7. And there's a bottom layer that holds no wealth whatsoever in the country, that lives with abject poverty. And for a country that's middle income, 62% of our children are experiencing multidimensional poverty. That means they live in conditions where there are no opportunities for them. They live with extreme poverty. They live with no access to quality food. And levels of hunger and malnutrition are very high for a middle income country. So about 21% of children experience stunting. You also have high levels of violence, including gender-based violence and violence against children, that has negatively impacted development and also created a lot of tensions in social relations. Most of you would have seen all this coverage that South Africa has received recently, which is skewed, but nonetheless, it marks or it shows the kind of high levels of tensions that have risen because of the high levels of violence. We also are seeing weakening governance, which is not a good thing when you're experiencing this multitude of challenges. 85% of their budgeted expenditure, according to the auditors, was actually being managed in departments, institutions which failed to attain a clean audit. It means that the way that they're procuring things, the way that they're managing their finances was not according to the rules that had been set in the country. And this leads to a lot of irregularities, which is leading to a lot of losses of resources that could have been employed and used in development initiatives. So when you think about this, and this is just some of the challenges. So when you think about some of these challenges, so we have to look at, so how does the NES interface? How does it position itself within society and be able to enable government and society at large to be able to respond to these challenges, to generate the kind of evidence that informs policies and strategies that deals with these challenges? And that's the measure of maturity that I sort of want to speak to today. So a little bit about the system. I saw a few people who are quite familiar with the South African evaluation system, like people like Dibulelo, and I think I saw Toko also join the call, if I'm not mistaken. And these are people who have worked with the South African evaluation system, both when I was still there and who have continued to kind of work with the system. Toko is actually leading the system as we speak, if she's in the call. Now, the South African evaluation system has a long history. There's a short and a long history. The short history traces the current national evaluation system, which is placed within the DPME, which DPME has been coordinating since about 2011. But that evaluation system is kind of build or is building on an established government-wide M&E ecosystem. Evidence and the need for reviews and the use of reviews is quite well established in our constitution, but also in what we call sectoral legislation. And Treasury had been establishing systems for a while, to track performance and to assess government performance linked to budget allocations. And evaluations were were established to some extent from about 2000 with the Public Service Commission, and some of the departments had evaluations already predating DPME. I was actually working in the Department of Human Settlements, and we already had evaluations being done and stuff. So there was already kind of like a ground on which DPME was started building on. And outside of government, obviously, you had also things that were happening. And the establishment of SAMIA around 2005 was pivotal to creating the conditions for evaluations to thrive in the country, but also within government. The system is a voluntary system, and what that means is that it's established in policy and it's not legislated. So government departments are not forced to do evaluation according to the standards and systems that has been set up by DPME. And this was a choice also necessitated by the nature of government that we are operating within South Africa. It's a system that's also governed by multiple stakeholders. You've got the National Evaluation Policy Framework sort of being coordinated by DPME, the National Evaluation Plan being led by DPME and commissioned by DPME. But you've got other stakeholders. So I mentioned somebody called Dibulelo. She's like in the Department of Social Development, and that sectoral ministry will lead its own evaluation following DPME standards, but they're also sort of collaborating in the implementation and the running of the national evaluation systems. The system is focused on improving performance, generating knowledge, and improving decision-making and learning within government. So it's not punitive. The whole idea behind the evaluation system within government has been, let's create the knowledge to enable our government ministries to make better decisions that could improve performance of policies and program. Quite importantly, it defines different types of evaluation, which enables the government to have a sort of a common way and a common language to talk about evaluation, which did not exist before the Department of the DPME started, running with the system. And this include about 5 types of evaluation: diagnostic, design, implementation, impact, and synthesis. And there was some creativity on the part of DPME in how these types of evaluations were designed, because they didn't really quite match with sort of like the global standard. You didn't really see a lot of people doing diagnostic evaluation. You didn't see a lot of people even talking at that time of even synthesis evaluation. But within DPME, within South Africa context, these were 2 forms of evaluation that were actually quite useful and very helpful for government departments. In 2019, the department, after the evaluation of the 2011 National Evaluation Policy Framework, adapted the policy and added other forms of evaluative tools within the toolbox, including rapid evaluations, which were needed because one of the findings from that evaluation suggested that we were taking too long in doing evaluations. But also, we wanted a tool for learning within government that was not necessarily doing a full-scale evaluation, and then they came up with collaborative learning through reviews and what's called transversal evaluation. So you can see adaptability, and you can see innovation within the system as the system is maturing. It's important to just sort of have a glimpse of what this components of the evaluation systems, so that when we go further, you understand what we are referring to. So the system is grounded on the evaluation policy. Now you have the 2019 one, and guidelines and tools that help departments to be able to do evaluation without necessarily needing the DPME to step in all the time. The DPME also supports departments in setting up departmental evaluation plans, provincial evaluation plans, through technical support to sort of build their capacity, their systems to be able to do evaluation. And that's linked very closely with the capacity development component. And then at the same time, and also setting up systems for quality assessment and systems for communication and dissemination of results. At the same time, as the department is sort of setting up, the system is sort of setting up these mechanisms, processes for institutionalizing evaluation across government, the department also runs and commissions evaluation through what's called the National Evaluation Plan. So every year they choose priority evaluations that are implemented directly by the DPME. So you can see it's quite an extensive system and quite a well-established system. I'm going to just show, okay, we should go forward, some of the guidelines. So they've got an extensive library of guidelines, templates, and tools to help departments to be able to do evaluation, which is an important aspect of the national evaluation system. So you have about 27 guidelines and about 9 templates in the system that people can access, everyone can access and use them. This is just to show you some examples of the level of planning that the system has been able to encourage within government. You have provincial departments being able to have develop plans and approach evaluation with intentionality instead of just doing it haphazardly, whenever, as and when they want to do evaluation. And I think that's an important development within the government system. So what has this achieved? We've looked at what the system looks like and the kind of challenges that it's trying to address, but what has it achieved? What has it actually done since its establishment? So in terms of implementation, a lot of work has gone in within the NEP to make sure that priority evaluations are actually carried out by DPME. And by priority evaluation, DPME refers to evaluations of programs and policies that are aligned to the National Development Plan and some of the areas that have been identified as priorities by government. And as you can see, for the past 14 years now, 83 evaluations have been sort of in the system through the NEP, the National Evaluation Plan. About 65 have been approved, and there have been 29 improvement plans that have been developed to implement the findings of these evaluations. About 25 were presented to Cabinet, and talk if there's updates on this number, you can also add. And then 14 are still sort of underway in the system. And you can see the proportions also. So a lot of work has gone into implementing the National Evaluation Plan, and it's kind of operating at a large enough scale to make an impact within the government, as you can see. And with regard to institutionalization, between 6 and 7 of the provinces have PEPs. One, in fact, does not necessarily have an official provincial, what is called a provincial evaluation plan, but they're doing evaluations. So maybe you can say 6 out of the 9 provinces that have provincial evaluation. And that kind of covers up to about 115 evaluation at the sub-national level. So in addition to the kind of 83 that are taking place at national level. About 300 plus evaluations have been taking place at a departmental level, so sort of ministry level. And the department has done a lot of work to also build capacity. And this is an older number, but just gives you a sense of the scale. By 2016, nearly 2,000 officials have been trained in things like developing theories of change, evidence-based policy making, managing and commissioning evaluation. So really strengthening the capacity of M&E staff within government. Since 2019, the NES has been also moving to municipal and state-owned enterprises. And that's an area where there's still a bit of challenges, but because you can see with municipalities, for example, that our municipalities are relatively weak. Most of our municipalities are not doing really well. And so not many have actually M&E units, and they struggle to take on the M&E role. But nonetheless, DPME is working in that space also to try and strengthen the M&E function more broadly, but also specifically focusing on evaluation in municipalities. So you can see this is kind of operating at a large enough scale within the country. I wanted to reflect on what this means in terms of how are these things being used. These numbers are going to look a little bit smaller, but the reason why they look smaller is because it's only focused on the latest report, which is looking at 2020 to 2025. So it doesn't reflect the entire period since the evaluation system existed. But it gives you a sense, right? In the last 5 years, They've been able to make sure that nine evaluations were followed up with a management response, where the department that was evaluated responded to the findings of the evaluation. There's been 6 improvement plans that were developed, which means the department actually took those findings and said, what are we going to do to improve things? And then there's been 11 instances of recorded and verifiable cases of use of results. And I think that's positive. Okay. So what does this tell us about maturity? Does this say anything about whether the system is maturing or not, whether the system is a system that can remain valid and relevant in the future? I think 5 things just to reflect on. So the first thing is that the system has shown that it's resilient and adaptive. We have seen political transition. So we had a different president when the system started. We have, I think, about 4 ministers that have come and be in charge of the DPME. We have seen changes in departmental leadership, both in the DG, but also the DDG has left. Many of the people who started with the system in the beginning have left the DPME, and the system has remained and has adapted, right? Even after the 2019 evaluation, they made more changes to respond to the evaluation findings, but also to changes in the context. So there's been ebbs and flows, but this is to be expected in any system. That there will be moments where the system is doing really well, and then there'll be times when it's not doing too well. The system is operating at scale, right? You see the DPME itself do evaluations. You're seeing departments do evaluation, municipalities, provinces. So it's operating at a scale that allows for it to be resilient, that allows for it to be able to reach wider within government. So the NES in South Africa is not isolated, and it's not only the work that's happening within DPME. It has established systems and processes for evaluation to happen with degree of planning and intentionality across a number of government agencies. And the focus on system building, in addition to delivery of evaluation by DPME, has actually proved very important to be able to achieve that scale implementation. The system has worked collaboratively and has emphasized collaboration over competition, working with SAMIA, the National School of Government, UN agencies, and that's key to its ability to adjust and adapt, even when there are limited resources. It has emphasized being utilization focused, meaning it's not about just producing reports. So things sometimes go a little bit slower. The number of evaluations that are done might be lower sometimes, but that's because the emphasis is on learning and growing together and taking the departments along, which means that there's more buy-in from departments for their programs to be evaluated. Lastly, the system was built incrementally. So it wasn't packaged and brought to South Africa fully fledged, but it was built based on the experiences of the people who were implementing and people who were part of the system, with a pilot evaluation, which then led to building of other parts and components as and when they were needed. And this is important, particularly for countries that are starting off. You don't want to try and aim for perfection from the beginning, but that you try and build incrementally as you go, and you build with what you have and not seeking perfection. However, there are issues that that persist within the system that are important to sort of reflect on. The first one is resources. Keep attracting and keeping talent within the system, but also now the shrinking budget within government. So the DPME evaluation unit does not have as much budget as it used to have before, which it removed one incentive for departments to get evaluations into the NEP. And also, there is resistance to change. I mean, if you're doing evaluation, you're trying to change big things, dealing with all those complex problems that we talked about in the beginning. And there is political resistance to some of those changes, and political decision-making still sort of sometimes trump the evidence, and it can be difficult for the evaluation system to actually influence decision. In a way, the evaluation system still shies away from some of these really contentious issues: violence, crime, poverty, infrastructure, decline in governance capability. And it's not necessarily getting into some of those and being part of the debates that are happening in the country. There isn't really a space for community voice in the NEP right now. So we're not necessarily facilitating accountability to citizens. So the communication has been a bit more limited to the traditional things that we do as evaluators. We're not yet leveraging tech to the extent that we can. And I think there's a lot of developments that are happening even within, for example, the International Evaluation Academy, about how we can use tech to make the work of evaluators easier, but also to be able to use new data sources for evaluation, making the work sometimes also faster. And that's an area where the system can grow. So I want to end on an aspirational note. So the international, I've just mentioned the International Evaluation Academy. There's been doing work on what's called the 3 horizons. I don't know how many of you have heard it, and it's a form of sort of futures thinking. And it involves applying what is the challenge we have with evaluation right now, where is evaluation going, where do we want to see evaluation in the future, and how do we get there? And I want to show the aspiration of evaluators globally that has been mapped out in the 3 horizon. Don't worry, there's going to be a lot of, I'm just warning you, there's a lot of details in the slide that's coming up, but we're not going to talk to everything. Just wanted to highlight what are these aspirations so we can talk about the NES going into the future. So the first thing is this idea that all evaluation contributes to transforming social ecological systems towards a just and regenerating planet. South Africa has itself been experiencing changes in the environment that's impacting people quite negatively. And so thinking about how evaluation kind of addresses or engages with that is an important thing. And also this vision or this idea that evaluation addresses the polycrisis systematically, and it starts being used across policy and organizational cycles, and it becomes a core competency and continues to evolve. And it is valued not only by evaluators, but by wider society. And this is something where I think that the evaluation system in South Africa really can grow into. And lastly, the third thing that I thought was important here was this idea of recentering power, voice, and justice, and seeing evaluation being able to sort of help address some of the issues that are affecting marginalized communities and bring their voice, and also address the injustices in our society. So the questions are, can evaluation practice through the NES, can the South African National Evaluation System really make sure that the evaluation practice within government is conceptually, technically, politically, and strategically adapted for a time of transformation? Can it ensure that we have a supply of skilled evaluators in ministries, in provinces, and state-owned enterprises? Can it help honor the local communities, particularly those that are marginalized, and nature as rights holders, but also as actors who have agency within the system? And ensure that evaluation addresses the number of crises that are facing the country right now, and that it's effectively used in policy and organizations, and that it forms part of, an evaluation evidence forms part of public discourse. There's a lot of things that are being debated where evaluation evidence is missing currently. You do see some of the monitoring data, you do see research, but evaluation has not been part of some of those big debates that are taking place in the country. And I think that the national evaluation system can get there. In conclusion, I want to just reflect on the promising developments which the NES is kind of embarking on now that tries to respond to these questions. I think the first thing is the DPME has been working around decolonization of NES and adapting to context and trying to figure out how do we use evaluation and develop evaluation processes that really speaks to the challenges South Africa is facing in different way. And then also really working on strengthening stakeholder mobilization and knowledge brokering. And in a context where truth is a terrain that's kind of, there's a lot of jostling for what is true, what's real. knowledge brokering is becoming super important, and the DPM is wanting to strengthen its role in doing that. And I think that's really positive. And then there are two important guidelines that the department has developed with SAMIA. One for integrating transformative equity criterion into evaluations, and then the second one for applying the climate and ecosystems health criterion in commissioning, designing, and implementation evaluation. And I think you should access these guidelines. I think they could be very useful, not just for those who are in South Africa or working with the South African government system, but for learning for others also. Of course, more work is needed for the NES to contribute fully to addressing some of these challenges that we're talking about. But these are promising developments. So in conclusion, I think that the South African National Evaluation System has demonstrated a degree of maturity and adaptability in response to a very dynamic environment. By investing in developing guidelines, tools, and templates, building the capacity of public servants to manage and to do evaluation. And thirdly, by working collaboratively with other institutions and building partnerships, both within government and outside of government, the NES has been able to withstand a number of setbacks and be able to adapt, and change as needed. I think that the NES has the potential to meet this global aspiration for evaluation and to serve as a guiding tool for evaluation in the public service and fostering adaptability and transformation. However, I do think that the system will need to be bolder in choosing what to evaluate and also in sharing knowledge more openly in the public sphere. And I will end there. Thank you, Sine. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matodzi. That was quite a great presentation. I think you mentioned the importance of ensuring that our national evaluation systems are adaptable and resilient, but also that our systems are valued by the wider society and that evaluations form part of the public discourse, which I think is important in ensuring that or future-proofing our national evaluation systems. Colleagues, so what we'll do is we'll go through all the presentations and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So I'm kindly requesting that if you do have a question, that you just put your question in the chat box, and then we will get to those after all presentations. So I'd like to now introduce Mr. Ronald, who will give us the next presentation. Over to you, Ronald.
Thank you, Sine. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure being here. And I'm very thankful to ClearAA for the opportunity to present. Today, I'll be speaking about Uganda's national evaluation system and looking at how it's transitioned over time and what we are doing now to try and build resilience that other countries can pick up from. And I'll be covering it in 6 different sections, one on the overarching legal framework, then a few lessons that we've learned along our journey, then how we are ensuring we sustain our national evaluation system capacities, what we're doing around evaluation and knowledge brokering, and a few of the results that we have seen lead directly to policy shifts and process shifts, and also what reforms we're putting in place to future-proof the NES. So at the overarching level, we have a national monitoring and evaluation policy that was approved by Cabinet in 2013. And this year, 2025, we're actually undergoing a review of that policy 12 years after we started implementation. And the policy has 2 overarching objectives, one to improve public performance and the other to improve the use of objective information. And the
sorry to disturb, Ronald. Sorry to disturb you. I'm just wondering whether you're projecting or not, because we can't see on our end.
Yes, I am. I don't know if I have the rights for sharing.
Okay, well, there we go. Okay.
You can see it now?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Okay. So there are 5 specific policy objectives of our national M&E policy that guides the NES, and one is on embedding M&E practices within ministries and local governments. The other focuses on evaluation in particular, to try and ensure that we have rigorous evaluations being undertaken, and the target is to undertake evaluations on every policy and program, which is quite ambitious. The other is on clarifying roles and responsibilities, because we acknowledge that every player within the evaluation space has a role, a specific role that they're charged with playing, and if they don't do it right, then they affect the results out of the NES. Then coordination remains a major issue in the public sector. So coordination of the supply of M&E information is very important. That's another objective. And lastly is on building capacities. So the policy operates, but it has a number of laws. Uganda does not have a law on M&E. There's always that discussion and discourse around whether a country needs a specific law on monitoring or evaluation for it to be able to regulate M&E within both private and public sector. But we hinge our M&E policy on a number of laws, starting with the constitution that specifically and directly talks about the mandate of the Office of the Prime Minister to undertake strategic coordination, monitoring, and then evaluation mentioned in the constitution. We have the Public Finance Management Act that looks at how public finances are utilized, and it emphasizes that evaluations should be undertaken for all programs and projects, but also gives a threshold of which projects have to undergo evaluation, which is set at about $150,000 or 500 million Uganda shillings. Then I have a number of other laws that I won't go through, one on the local governments and how they operate, one on statistics under the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, one on planning, one on the audit for money and cost benefit analysis of every intervention, and many others. But lastly, the public service performance management framework that specifically requires that evaluations are undertaken on interventions in government to make sure that they meet the required standards. So when we look at all the actors within the national evaluation system, so the president is generating policy advice to cabinet, and our focus in the NES is to see that not only the president, but even cabinet appreciate the need for M&E. And I'll be speaking about what has happened in that direction. The Office of the Prime Minister, as the lead coordinator of government business, coordinates not only the M&E policy, but also the government evaluation facility, under which evaluations are undertaken and resources for evaluations are mobilized. The National Planning Authority prepares medium and long-term plans, but also ensures that we integrate evaluation in the National Development Plan. And we have a specific subsection in the plan where we've articulated what areas we want to evaluate over our next 5-year plan, thanks to the National Planning Authority. Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is with allocating, but not only allocating, because we know evaluations suffer budget cuts more times than not. So they're supposed to ring fence resources around evaluation systems, processes, but also do budget monitoring to ensure that resources geared towards evaluations are utilized effectively, and also to ensure that we prioritize evaluations in our medium-term expenditure framework. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics plays its statistical role. National Information Technology Authority ensures that we have linkage between evaluation management information systems, but also that we have data quality assurance systems in place, and that all tools speak to each other in the evaluation space. Then line ministries, departments, agencies, and local governments all are supposed to operationalize the M&E function, and government of Uganda has actually established a cadre named M&E officer for every single institution, every ministry, every department, and every local government. And we're just at the infancy stage of making sure that we fill all those positions, though at least 5% or so of all the about 300 institutions have at least already filled the structures. Then academia and researchers are part of our national evaluation platform and the National M&E Technical Working Group to make sure that they provide the evidence through undertaking evaluations, especially independent evaluations, and we also have the non-state actors and the private sector. Got a few key lessons from how we have built our NES. One, OPM has taken the coordination function because of its mandate within the Constitution. It ensures that the National Partnership Forum, which is a table at which all development partners sit, and puts some money towards evaluations. We are currently undertaking an evaluation, a system-wide evaluation on all UN interventions in Uganda, and it came through that platform. CSOs are coordinated by the Prime Minister. We have a specific unit that is in charge of monitoring the activities of NGOs. The private sector has a private sector investment roundtable chaired by the Prime Minister. The public is again coordinated through national guidance under the Office of the Prime Minister. We have international collaborations with a number of entities, including CLEAR, that is sponsoring this session. And also the Prime Minister coordinates all global commitments from SDGs to the AU agenda. So that it's through such platforms that we bring in the evaluation agenda. Then in terms of human resource capacity, we have built a cohort of skilled M&E cadres over time through training from different institutions. Uganda Management Institute, Makerere University has specific courses on M&E, Uganda Technology and Management University, and so many others have actually established specific courses and programs on M&E. And then we have M&E training and mentorship between institutions, not just the Office of the Prime Minister, but in the M&E units in other ministries. And then partnerships with universities, research institutions. When we undertake a huge evaluation, for example, the ongoing impact evaluation of the nutrition program is being funded with support from World Food Program, but with partner support or co-funding from the Office of the Prime Minister. But it's being undertaken by the Makerere University College of Economics. When you look at integration, we have developed an NDB M&E web-based system that integrates with a number of other systems, initially with the integrated bank of projects to capture the results frameworks of all projects, but also with the program budgeting system through which all institutions report on their quarterly performance. So you find that any data out there that is going to be captured by evaluations has also been captured somewhere within these systems. So the NDP web-based system becomes a one-stop center for evaluators that are looking for certain data points that may not be available through grey literature or published reports. We also have a digital government strategy on board the UG Hub, which is an integration bus, where we have data collected from the Uganda Revenue Authority, for example, being available for anybody, as long anybody within government that is looking to be able to enroll, for example, beneficiary of a social protection program or to register a company. All you need is a national ID. So the UG Hub has made that possible. So when evaluators need data from some of these institutions, and the data is readily available because of this strategy. Then data management and adaptability, where we've pushed for open data initiatives from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, but also other institutions where that release evaluation reports to be able to also release the raw data set so that further research can take place. Then resourcing for evaluations, where we have looked inwardly as government. One, secured a wage for the M&E cadre in M&E across. Also, we are in the process of creating an M&E budget line. So funds that are towards M&E activities and evaluations are ring-fenced, and also going further to do M&E budget. We're able to map out how much in terms of resources goes towards M&E. And out of that, we have program implementation action plans that have helped us to set realistic targets. So every program under which institutions or ministries are clustered sets targets, and these targets and the indicators are what are used by evaluators or when we're doing evaluation of what we're implementing, and also undertaking systematic reviews to from Makerere University and Uganda Management Institute, and we have developed only one evidence gap map before, but we're in the process of developing another with Makerere University College of Health Sciences. I will move on quickly. The last thing is that we have established sanctions so that when there are results from M&E processes, there are sanctions, for example, impact on local government grants based on their performance, disbursement linked indicators for ministries, and performance contracts for PSCs are all tagged to the results framework of the institution. So those are things that we have had to come up over time to make sure that eventually, as we evaluate our interventions, there is some level of improvement, the data is available, the capacities are there within institutions to provide the data, but also undertake the evaluations amongst the private sector. And we also routinely undertake an NES needs assessment to look at capacity needs, especially human resources and roles and responsibilities, looking at system needs to review our M&D frameworks, where we have M&D framework reviews every year to try and look at the indicators that are being entered into the program budgeting system. Reviewing M&E guidelines and standards every 5 years as we update the National Development Plan. For every new development plan, we develop a new set of guidelines. In terms of resourcing, to be more creative around resources, because we know evaluations and evaluation products and are very costly in many of the cases for some evaluation designs, but also to ensure that the data that are available is of quality, is available. We review the indicators and targets annually, and that the tools being used are the best available on the market. So we do needs assessments around all these areas and decide what we're going to do around the NES in the next fiscal year. Currently, we do, just like all the other countries, we undertake evaluations at a number of levels. We have the Uganda evaluation standards that we use to ensure the quality of evaluations undertaken. We follow the OECD DAC criteria. We undertake evaluability assessments to look at what goes into the evaluation agenda, both at a national level, but also thematic level evaluation agenda. We've developed one for the health sector recently. We have a costed national evaluation plan. We have an evaluation subcommittee that peer reviews evaluation designs for all government evaluations to be undertaken. In terms of dissemination through the National M&D Technical Working Group, we disseminate our evaluations, but also we have an Apex platform which speaks directly to His Excellency the President and is comprised of different institutions. And all evaluations undertaken are presented to this platform that synthesizes the evidence and findings out of them and then presents them to His Excellency. And at the lower tier, below the impact evaluations, we do a number of outcome evaluations, and I'll be speaking to a few evaluations we've undertaken in the past and the results that came out of them, summative evaluations, progress and performance monitoring evaluations. And all these are undertaken within the hospice of the Government Evaluations Facility, which is the vehicle we use to mobilize resources for the NES, but also to do capacity building for evaluations. In terms of knowledge brokering, we have a number of tiers that we've attempted to undertake. We've developed a couple of checklists for the health sector, post-COVID, nutrition checklists for institutions to see whether their interventions are nutrition sensitive. We're doing climate budget. So we develop checklists for that as well, where institutions look through their budgets at the beginning of the financial year, and we are able to map out how how responsive budgets are to climate resilience and climate mitigation, and then their awards and the report produced on that. As I mentioned, we have guidelines we've developed, not just for the NDP, but for different areas. Then we have evidence portals, including the GEF portal mentioned. We have the one evidence gap map that we did on access to justice. We have a government web portal, which is a one-stop center for evaluations undertaken within Uganda. We have undertaken systematic reviews. Currently, we're doing 3 systematic reviews, one on livelihoods, one on loan schemes with higher education, and then the other one is on the health sector and interventions at health facility level 3. So for all these, do intentional training to make sure that we keep building the capacities of different MDAs to undertake all this knowledge brokering. We have data repository. We have a data repository. We do peer review of research and M&D products through the evaluation subcommittee, and we push for multi-stakeholder partnerships, for example, through co-funding of evaluations across different ministries if they have the same interest in the evaluation question or area within the National Evaluation Plan. So how have we pictured us having matured, our NES maturing? In terms of policy integration and legal mandates, we have a dedicated policy. Evaluations are in annual budgets and plans. Even the Office of the Prime Minister budgets for evaluations annually and undertakes them. And we have key performance indicators, not just in our NDP, but also at institutional level in a number of institutions that specifically look at how many evaluations have been undertaken and what percentage of the interventions, of the projects of that ministry have actually been evaluated. In terms of institutional infrastructure, we have centralized evaluation institution, which is also the Prime Minister. We have cross-ministerial oversight through the National M&D Technical Working Group and the Evaluation Subcommittee that is and sub-regional and legal evaluation structures, which is being built through the M&A units that we're setting up within local governments. But this fits into the central government framework. In terms of technical capacity and professionalism, we're training specific cadres and ensuring continuous professional development. Every quarter, we undertake specific evaluation trainings on evaluation together with Makerere University. And we do certification through those programs and follow up on competencies. And in terms of utilization, we have demonstrable influence of policy shifts, and I'll look at what policies have shifted through our evaluations. And we have practical use of evaluation outcomes. For example, the transition from the use of the SFG grant or the schools facility grant within local governments that changed the guidelines around how schools utilize this grant to make sure it targets low capacity areas. Then dedicated budget lines for evaluation, and then our evaluation standards. So looking at what we've done around the results, from the process evaluations, midterm reviews, rapid evaluations, evidence synthesis, and formative and end-line evaluations and evidence gap maps we produced. On the monitoring side, our externally funded projects monitoring exercise undertaken routinely led to penalties reducing from 26.5 million. These are penalties paid on loan projects that are delayed either through implementation or in terms of design. So from the findings and the recommendations of these monitoring processes, we reduced those penalties from 26.5 million to 4.6 million. In terms of the national annual performance reviews, we had 67% of our review actions implemented, and this was the most outstanding review. But we have seen that percentage also increase, and the percentage of audit opinion on local governments that turns out to be unqualified has also continued to grow. In terms of evaluations, we had the Uganda primary education program impact evaluation that led to the amendment of the capitation grant to focus more on things like inspection, which were leading to lower learning outcomes. We had the youth livelihood program implementation, impact evaluation that led to the redesign of the program into what we call a MIOGA, targeting specific youths and women and different core capacities of the population. The VODP or Vegetable Oil Development Program evaluation led to the design of VODP2. But also most recently, government is rationalizing all its institutions. We are reducing the number of government institutions by nearly half, getting different institutions that we thought had certain levels of duplication to be anchored under their line ministries. And this process was informed by a process evaluation undertaken by the Office of the Prime Minister on public sector organizations. And as we move forward, we're finalizing our evaluation agenda, reviewing the M&E policy. We're undertaking a regulatory impact assessment on that policy to see whether, one, we need a law, two, if there are better ways of regulating the M&E space, but also looking at how we can design a better policy implementation plan. We're scaling up process and rapid evaluations as a lower cost approach to evaluations than impact evaluations. We're now moving into public enterprise and state corporations with our performance assessment because there were institutions that were left out before. But we're also ensuring rigorous follow-up of M&E recommendations, especially cabinet actions. And we're scaling up systematic reviews and evidence gap maps. In terms of sustaining the national evaluation capacities, we are working on modernizing evaluation tools when it comes to the technical level, integrating databases and also integrating AI within our database, our GEF web portal. Then we have ensured that evaluations are very, very dominant in the next NDP4. And with the review of our policy, we have ensured that all institutions that come up with strategic plans show how they're going to evaluate those strategic plans. But also, as I mentioned earlier, we have decentralized the M&E cadre to ensure that all subnational levels or local government levels have an M&E officer that is trained as an M&E officer, not just as an M&E role. At institutional level, the National Evaluation Agenda is being developed along with a costed National Evaluation Plan through co-creation amongst the institutions, but with support from the likes of CLEAR and Twendembele. Review of the M&E policy is ongoing, strengthening the evaluation subcommittee. And then we're looking at decentralizing evaluations so that even local governments can undertake their own evaluations. And at a governance level, we're looking at political will and leadership. We have recently had a minister now who has been put in charge of performance management, and she's pushing a lot on evaluation. And then diversifying funding following the exit of certain funds from external partners to ensure that we allocate resources for evaluations, but co-contributed to by different ministries. And also grassroots accountability all the way up to the level of local government council that allocate subnational budgets. But also strengthening demand by parliament. Parliamentarians were not really utilizing evaluations, but we're constantly building their capacity through trainings, through continuous engagements and breakfast meetings to ensure that they understand evaluations and demand for them, and also peer learning with different countries. So as I conclude, we have a number of things that we're looking at to future-proof the national evaluation system. One, the program budgeting system through which all institutions budget is being aligned to the program implementation action plan, which has the indicators on evaluation so that as entities plan and budget, they can also budget for evaluations. We're scaling up M&E trainings, but specifically targeting the politicians because they allocate the resources and they need to be brought on board when it comes to M&E and specifically evaluations. Revamping the GEF web portal, benchmarking the 3IE and DEval databases. We have standardized our digital tools and are looking to partner with a number of institutions to integrate AI into them and GIS as well, so that we can be able to collect close real-time data, which can be readily available for evaluation processes. Strengthening peer learning, quality assurance mechanism for M&E. We have a lot of reports where validation mechanisms are not strong enough. So this points to the credibility of the reports. The regulatory impact assessment of our policy to see whether we need the law or not, and also to create an investment case for scaling up financing on M&E across government. And then institutionalizing evaluation resourcing, specifically having a dedicated line item within the can be able to allocate some sort of resources under the available budget ceiling towards evaluations. I will stop there and questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Ronald, for a very insightful presentation. And I like how the collaboration between your office, the planning and budgeting office, the collaboration between those three offices is quite good as well. So in the interest of time, I'll just move on to Sakina so that we have enough time to do it.
Thank you so much, Sine. Good afternoon from Tanzania. And thank you so much, Claire, for giving us this opportunity to share our insights from country experiences on M&E in general. And I truly appreciate the lens I'm always getting from a South Africa experience and now from Uganda. They are my brothers and sisters, so I always happy to learn from them. And of course, I adopt, of course, and customize a lot from them because they have done a very good job. South Africa and Uganda, to me, there is a place to learn every time, every day. When I think of learning M&E, I just go there and of course, I get a lot to learn. From Tanzania, and because we don't have more time, I will share only a few aspects of our M&E system and the efforts that are going on to improve Tanzania monitoring and evaluation system. And from my perspective, M&E in Tanzania landscape is still evolving, but its evolvement presents unique opportunities for more engagement with emerging trends and innovative approaches. And its evolvement has depended on the economic, political, and administrative in nature, because all of these had made a lot of changes, positively, but also sometimes negatively. But all in all, the government role is to ensure that all the mechanisms are in place to have a best and robust M&E system. So I will not go back to the history, but I will just explain that Tanzania M&E system is built within 6 major components, which we have been institutionalized to every public institution, whereby there is a requirements that have been given from our guidelines that all public institutions should have a mechanism to develop and track their performance indicators. So performance indicator is one of key components for Tanzania M&E system, but also we have performance reviews whereby all plans, policies, programs are supposed to be reviews has been done to make sure that we are moving on the right track. The reviews, they are done through meetings, but through milestones, review, and tracking methodologies. But also another component is data system, whereby all public institutions have got mechanism to make sure the data are well stored, accessible, and of course ready to retrieve and do decisions for projects and plans. But also another component is performance evaluations and learnings. We really encourage all the projects, programs to evaluation to be conducted so as to determine the effectiveness of our programs and projects. But also the performance report as another component, that there are reports that are provided from weekly reports. We have monthly reports, quarterly reports, semi-annual, but also annual and outcome reports, which are also provided from government institutions. But another component that we have just added in our new guideline is dissemination, learning, and adaptation. We encourage all the findings, the report should be shared so that the people around Tanzania and our partners outside Tanzania can also learn, understand on what is going on in the country and the performance of our projects and the programs. So all these components are within our M&E system, and all institutions are supposed to ensure all these components are institutionalized and they are well implemented. But also implementation of M&E system in Tanzania is implemented through 3 levels of institutional arrangements, I can say. We have a national M&E setup, we have sector M&E setup, we have institutional level M&E setup. At national level, we talk of the coordination role of M&E system, whereby we have national processes, structures, but we have lead agencies and champions at national level. And we also have national indicators, those those 6 components which I've just mentioned prior, we have national indicators, we have national reviews, we have data systems at national levels, but we have national evaluations. But also another level is sector M1E system, whereby at the sector, we are now here referring to the way our ministries has been set. Like Ministry of Agriculture, we call it as a sector, although I know sector can have a lot of contributors, but with these settings, we refer ministries as sector, whereby they are supposed to manage the M1A system, together managing how the institutions under the sector, because our structures, we have ministries, but the ministries is also, managing other institutions which is under the ministry, like the parastatals, executive agencies, and independent department, which fall under the certain ministry. So we have M1E system for sector setup, or ministry M1E setup, whereby they are supposed to set the indicators for sector, review systems for sector, data system for sector, but also have evaluations of programs and the projects that are implemented on that sector. And another level is institutional level. In this institutional level, we are now referring an individual institution, whereby they're supposed also to have the institutional setup for M1E by having M1E champions, by having M1E reporting systems, by having data system evaluation and so forth and so forth. So talking at national level, we have like 3 main pillars which managing national M1E system. And this is, we have the high-level committees, whereby the high-level committees, there are 2 high-level committees. One is Interministerial Technical Committee, which is chaired by the Chief Secretary, who is the chairing of this committee. But also we have a subcommittee of the high-level committee of IMTC, of Interministerial Technical Committee. So for that matter, the subcommittee always report to the Interministerial Technical Committee. We call it IMTC on our set. So another important committee at the national level, we have technical teams. I'm so glad that I'm learning from also Uganda, and they have like technical working groups, which helps a lot. Even in Tanzania, we have that set up for technical teams, whereby they have like 8 coordinating institutions. Of course, the Prime Minister is playing a coordination role, but we have other institutions which are also have a stake on M1E, like National Bureau of Statistics, Planning Commission, Ministry of Finance, President's Office, but also President's Office, local government, regional administration, local government, and so forth. So like 8 institutions are falling in that category. So all are supposed to report to the subcommittee of IMTC, whereby the subcommittee is reporting to IMTC on each and every issue related to government performance. At sector level, the one I told you about, whereby the ministry is now regarded as the sector, we are expecting the ministry to organize M1E at 3 settings, whereby they should have a sector task force, which consists of all directors and managers under the same ministry with institutions, who also discuss issues on monitoring and evaluation reports for M1E, and of course, discuss if there is any challenges, they discuss together, and then the report has to be submitted to M1E high-level committee, which consists of head of institutions falling under that ministry. The permanent secretary, for that matter, is the chair, but also all head of institutions falling under the ministry are also members to that committee. So they discuss performance reports. If there are projects which are not performing, this is the place where they discuss and provide the decisions. But also at sector level, they are supposed to have sector professional network, whereby where this is the same as like joint sector review, whereby they call all other partners which have interest or they contribute to that sector, including private sectors, to discuss issues which are supposed to be, to improve within that sector. So under these settings, the sector is getting an opportunity to meet their stakeholders, to discuss issues, but also to improve the way a sector is performing. At institutional level, as I have said, every institution is supposed to have M&E champions from each and every unit under that institution. And the M&E champions are supposed to report to management of that institution. And M&E champions, of course, they gather all the reports from departments through the M&E unit and then report to management every month. So the roles and responsibilities for this M&E task force has been also stipulated in our guidelines. So on top of the institutional structure, the government of Tanzania also has made some efforts to ensure M&E is improving. Like currently, we have established M&E unit to all ministries, all regional secretariats, and all local government authorities. And some of government parastatals also have got the M&E units. So for this is a big achievement, because previously M&E were under, some were under planning, some were under corporate department. So the objectivity and that independence of working as M&E for the institution was missing. So by having this independent M&E units, now they are directly responsible with M&E activities, but also they are supposed to report to the head of institution. And this gives them at least powers to ensure whatever they see from the field, from the projects, from the reports, they report it to the head of institution, who is the final say in that institution, compared to previous, which they had to report to director of corporate service or director of planning, who is also supposed to report to the head of institution. And there was a danger of sometimes the reports were not presented as it was supposed to be. But also the Tanzania, we are trying to empower and build M&E culture by training. We have entered some MOUs with some of our universities to ensure they provide the training to M&E champions across the government. But also we conduct every year, and this we have learned from our neighbors countries, including South Africa and Uganda, conducting Mel Weeks events annually. And through these events, actually, a lot of people are getting knowledge, but also they keep on understanding issues on M&E. So for us, this forum it means a lot when it comes to building evaluation culture in the country. Also, we conduct evaluation readiness assessment, and currently we have done one with UNICEF and CLEAR, with support from CLEAR, to understand our M&E capacity in the country. And the reports, I think, will be shared during Mel Week. But also at institutional level, we conduct readiness assessment based on demand basis. For example, for this financial year, more than 46 government institutions have been facilitated to do readiness assessment. And by having reports, then they go to the next step, whereby they develop the M&E strategy or M&E plan and the frameworks. But also we develop government performance report annually. Now we are preparing the third government report. And of course, we keep on improving from the first report to the second, now the third report. And I'm so happy that tomorrow we'll be having a knowledge sharing platform with our fellows from Uganda to understand better, especially on this aspect of government performance reports and how they do and what are the challenges, but what we can learn also from them. But as in Tanzania, we don't have a national evaluation policy, but there are efforts that are going on to ensure we finalize the national MNE policy, but also having its strategy. And we are on the stage whereby we are supposed to present to National Policy Committee for getting the approval so that we can move to another level of approval. But also, we don't have MNE cadre. So we have established MNE cadre and submitted to President Office Public Service Management, who have mandate to approve MNE, to approve any cadre in the government. So we are just waiting for the approval so that we can roll out the cadre to all public institutions. We are in the move to establish a government-wide integrated digital MNE system because we do believe the major challenge that we have is on the data quality. And most of the data that we are collecting are coming from local government authorities. So we want also to empower local government, but at the same time, having a system which will help to get the real data from the field up to national level and able to make a decision, but also to improve our policies. And because of time, I see Sine is looking at me. We have also a plan to establish a center of excellence. We are in partnership with University of Dodoma. We are still on the infant stage. And as soon, I think after having this center of excellence will also help a lot to improve our Tanzania MNE system. Finally, we have developed a number of guidelines for public sector, like integrated government MNE guideline, but we have also national evaluation manual. We have a national government MNE readiness assessment tool for public sector. All of these guidelines are available in our website at Prime Minister's Office, www.pmo.go.tz. All public institutions are getting those information from there. So because of time, let me end up from there. Thank you, Sine, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sakina. Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I think in the interest of time, we'll just move on quickly to the questions. And I see there are questions in the chat box already. So I would like to request both Matodzi and Sakina to attend to the first two questions around what steps can less mature national evaluation systems take to prepare future challenges and opportunities, and also how countries balance the need for immediate evaluation priorities with long-term strategic planning. And then I see Ronald, there are two questions for you in the chat. They're asking, are evaluability assessments conducted only for impact evaluations? But there's another question, how can innovative Uganda evaluation practices such as the Baraza be used and institutionalized in making country-led evaluations more impactful in Uganda and other African countries? And are there any challenges facing the country regarding the utilization of evaluations, and how do we deal with that? So I'll hand over, maybe Matodzi, you can go first.
Thanks for those questions. I don't know who asked the question, but I'm going to talk to the second question. This issue about how to balance the need for immediate evaluation priorities and long-term strategic planning, because I think it's a serious concern even within DPME. I think even when I was still working in DPME, it was an issue. There was a pressure to do more evaluation, to show that we were doing evaluation, and there wasn't always support for doing the kind of system building work, the capacity building. I think even now, like, they're having to rely a lot more on NSG, which is okay, get that work, work done. So how do you balance that? I think you do need to be doing some evaluation, because that's how you generate support and buy-in from your government. If you're not publishing enough evaluation, then the system looks like it's not making a difference. It's not important. It's not needed. And then at the same time build the evaluation components. And what I learned, I think, from the experience within DPME was that you can build the components as you're implementing evaluation. So basically most of the initial guidelines, I'm not sure about now, but most of the initial guidelines were developed on the basis of work we're doing in an evaluation. Like we'll be doing an evaluation, and someone's like, I think we need a guideline for how we do literature review, because the literature reviews that we are dealing with are like just poor quality. And then it was developed. Or, we'll get to a recommendation and we're struggling with getting good recommendations, and like, okay, we need guidance for recommendations, and then a guideline was developed. Or we need training on this issue because we're seeing that it's lacking. So I think that's a way to sort of balance it and sort of see things emerging, the kind of strategic long-term planning, but also responding to emerging needs. And I think that's what I would say in terms of how you balance it off. It's not an easy balance. It's a very delicate thing to sort of try and get right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madozi. Sakina, not sure whether you want to add to that.
Thank you so much. I think it's a bit tricky when you want to respond on what are the signals for maturity level of M&E system. But for me, maybe I can say it might be characterized by maybe ability on how M&E has been set to sustain, to adapt, but also to integrate into organizational decision making. Because what we want is M&E results to be used for decision making and improve performance. So if you see there are mechanisms set to integrate all M&E is producing and able to give opportunity for decision makers to use and to improve the government and in service delivery, then for me, I see the maturity level can be also seen from there. But also, more importantly, when you talk on maturity level of M&E system, sometimes you look on the way the readiness of the top, the influential, the top leaders, but also having a strong and influential champions who are visible at the center of government, who can also play a critical role in ensuring the M&E results is the one that is really used to make any decision within government interventions. Maybe I can end up there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakina. And I'll move on to Ronald, maybe in the next 2 minutes or so, to just answer the questions that were posed to you.
Thank you, colleagues, for the questions. On the first one, do we only conduct evaluability assessments for impact evaluations? No, we do the evaluability assessments when we're reviewing the National Evaluation Plan and the National Evaluation Agenda. So before we agree on a certain topic going into the agenda and us putting it into the plan and costing it, then we have a small co-creation meeting or discussion with the stakeholder, MDAs. Unfortunately, local government participation is usually limited, but at least at the central government level, we usually have good participation for us to determine whether or not to do the evaluation. So even for the process evaluations we've undertaken, we've actually done evaluability assessments. The challenge is where the evaluations are funded by other players or other partners that perhaps either are not interested in following some of the evaluation standards, or because of time, you find that the evaluation process has been hurriedly planned for, budgeted for, funded, and undertaken. So no, we don't do it for any impact evaluations. On Barazas being citizen-led, that's a very lovely question. We're constantly trying to innovate barazas to make sure that the citizens are the focus. And I think the first thing we have to change is the kind of the approach to the sessions. The way we do them currently, the local government or the technical officers make their presentations, then the citizens ask the questions. And in that, then you find that most of the presentations made don't have an evaluative approach to them. So what we would want is for questions to be asked, and then the officers actually respond to those questions and then build flesh around them on the evidence that's available. The other is co-funding. We find that barazas are not sustainable within entity budgets. So building partnerships with CSOs, NGOs, development partners, particularly those with an interest in governance or transparency and accountability, is another way that, one, you can scale up, but also build trust from the population to participate in the barazas. And in terms of utilization of evaluations, again, another interesting question. I think one of the biggest challenges we face is the political interests that come along with evaluations. Even at the time the evaluation is proposed, there are certain political interests in what the findings should point to, even before you have designed the evaluation. So sometimes you find yourself not being very objective and having to play a lot of power dynamics around the structures in play, and eventually package the evaluation findings different from what you actually found. The other challenge is around data availability. A lot of the evaluations require administrative data and then primary data collected. So most of the administrative data is collected through different means, the data collection funded by different parties using different tools. So even when you provide the standards, depending on the evaluation you're conducting, you will often find some data gaps, which obviously affect the quality of the analysis and the findings. And then the last, the other is on the capacities of not just the evaluators, but most importantly, the people that should use the evaluations. Many times the evaluators will package the evaluation and have some graphs in there that a politician won't understand, and yet they are the policymakers, so that a minister won't understand. So I think the capacities still need to continuously be built for them to understand the findings of different evaluations, but also for us, the evaluation practitioners, to be able to package the right findings in the right manner or product. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to our panelists for the rich and practical insights that you've just shared. And it's clear that future-proofing national evaluation systems requires a blend of technical capacity, political will, adaptability, and partnerships, learning partnerships. And to all the participants, thank you so much for joining us today. And apologies for the delay by 1 minute in ending this session. But we thank you, and we hope that this session has sparked some ideas for you to take back to your institutions and adapt them within your national context. So let's continue this important conversation beyond this session. Through our learning exchanges, through our communities of practice, and from the ClearA side, we're also committed to continuing to support and learn with countries on their journey. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I think this is now a good point where we can close the session, and wishing you a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Sine.